before history carved its truths in stone, before kings rose and fell, before the first breath of civilization stirred the dust of forgotten lands, there was a memory, whispered by the waves, a story of a mighty realm, born of gods, drowned by wrath. Atlantis, a name that echoes across the corridors of time, a phantom city whose legend has haunted the minds of dreamers, scholars, and wanderers for over 2,000 years. Around 360 BCE, the tale was first spoken by a man of wisdom, Plato, the philosopher of Athens. In dialogues he titled Timaeus and Critias. There, amidst teachings of virtue and cosmic order, he wove the tale of a lost civilization, a mighty empire that dared to challenge the world, only to be swallowed by the sea in a single, catastrophic night. But was it truth or allegory? A warning draped in myth? From where did Plato draw such visions? Was it whispered by priests of ancient Egypt, as he claimed? Were they memories of a cataclysm so old that even memory itself forgot its shape? Over time, the myth of Atlantis has grown, branching like a living thing into the maps of explorers, the dreams of poets, the obsessions of kings. From the royal halls of Renaissance Europe to the shadowed depths of modern oceans, the hunt has never ceased. And still, no one has found her. Is Atlantis merely a reflection of our highest hopes and our darkest warnings? Or was there truly a world, once glorious, now forgotten beneath fathomless waters? Tonight, we sail beyond the edges of memory, into the depths of legend, into the mystery of Atlantis. Welcome, traveler, to Millennia Whispers, where forgotten worlds awaken, ancient secrets breathe anew, and timeless legends echo once more across the ages. Subscribe to Millennia Whispers and embark on voyages beyond the veil of history. Here, every stone has a story, every myth holds a hidden truth, and every journey begins with a single spark. In the 4th century before Christ, in the beating heart of ancient Athens, a philosopher gazed not only into the world as it was, but into the mysteries that lay beyond. Plato, disciple of Socrates, master of thought, through dialogues meant to unravel the nature of the cosmos and the soul, he gifted the world a story, not of gods and monsters, but of men and of their fall. In Timaeus, he spoke first of a distant land, larger than Libya and Asia combined, lying beyond the Pillars of Heracles, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. There, Atlantis ruled with splendor over countless islands and continents, its navy vast, its palaces gleaming like polished jewels under the immortal sun. The Atlanteans were born of divine blood, descendants of Poseidon himself, lord of the seas. Under his guidance they flourished, crafting wonders that defied the ages. Rings of land and water interlaced in perfect harmony, temples plated in precious orichalcum, and armies so great they made empires tremble. But even the children of gods are not immune to the rot of pride. With power came arrogance, with wealth came greed. The Atlanteans, once noble, turned their ambitions outward, to conquer, to subjugate, to dominate the world beyond their shores. And so, the punishment came. In a single, terrifying night, earthquakes shattered the foundations of the earth, and great floods swallowed Atlantis whole. The mighty empire vanished into the depths, never to rise again. Thus spoke Plato, not as a bard weaving fables, but as a philosopher, a seer, a messenger of warnings carried from civilizations older than memory itself. Was it allegory, or the echo of a truth too ancient, too immense for history to remember? Thus was born the legend of Atlantis, a name forever bound to wonder, longing, and loss. Behold the marvel that was Atlantis, a kingdom of dream and wonder, kissed by the gods themselves. At the heart of the island, 3 rings of water embraced 3 rings of earth, a sacred dance of nature and craftsmanship. Bridges spanned the rings, and mighty ships sailed through emerald canals, bearing treasures beyond imagination. There, in the central isle, stood the Temple of Poseidon, a wonder in itself. Its walls were sheathed in silver, its pinnacles blazing with gold. Inside, a colossal statue of the sea god towered above all, his chariot drawn by mighty horses and winged dolphins, his gaze eternal, serene, and terrible. The land was bountiful beyond measure, grains that ripened without toil, fruits that needed no tending, rare metals, unknown to the world beyond, including the fabled orichalcum, a metal said to shine like fire. Their people, wise and vigorous, blended the strength of mortal flesh with the wisdom of divine blood. Philosophy flourished alongside warfare. Art, science, and law wove together into a shining tapestry, a society unmatched, a dream realized. Atlantis was governed not by tyranny, but by kings chosen through wisdom and merit. 10 royal houses, descendants of Poseidon's lineage, ruled in harmony, each sworn to the sacred laws inscribed by the god himself, immutable and pure. Trade routes stretched like silver threads across the world, bringing spices, jewels, and knowledge from distant lands. No power rivaled Atlantis, no city dared challenge its might. And yet, in their golden splendor lay the seeds of doom, for in their pride, the Atlanteans began to forget the sacred ways, and the favor of the gods began to wane. What was once a beacon of divine harmony now drifted toward ambition and toward ruin. Around 360 BCE, the philosopher Plato, in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, gave birth to a vision that would haunt human imagination forever. He spoke of Atlantis, not merely as myth, but as a memory passed down through priests of ancient Egypt to the lawgiver Solon, and from Solon, finally, to him. Plato tells us that Atlantis, blessed with divine bounty, grew arrogant and corrupt. Where once justice reigned, now avarice and conquest ruled. Their armies stretched across continents, their ships blackened the seas. And though they sought dominion over all lands, only ancient Athens, pure and courageous, dared to resist. Yet even victorious Athens could not forestall the gods' judgment. In Critias, Plato recounts that the gods, seeing the Atlanteans fall from grace, resolved to purge the world of their hubris. Poseidon, who had once nurtured Atlantis with loving hands, now looked upon his children with sorrow and wrath. With a nod from Zeus, the hammer of divine retribution fell. In a single catastrophic night, as recorded by Plato in Timaeus, Atlantis was swallowed by the sea. Mountains crumbled, and the seafloor rose to devour fields and palaces alike. What centuries had built, the fury of moments destroyed. All that remained was silence, a vast, empty ocean where once the greatest of civilizations had thrived. Thus was Atlantis lost, a caution, a lament, preserved not by stone or steel, but by the fragile breath of memory, first whispered by Plato in the twilight of Greece's golden age. Atlantis, a name that lingers like a half-remembered dream. If Plato's words are to be believed, then what vanished beneath the waves was no mere city. It was a world entire, lost not only to geography, but to the annals of history itself. According to Plato, in Timaeus and Critias, written circa 360 BCE, the story of Atlantis was ancient even then, predating the birth of Athens itself by over 9,000 years. The Egyptian priests of Saias, as told to Solon, claimed that their records stretched back 8,000 years before Solon's time, preserving the memory of a cataclysm that reshaped the earth. It was in the sacred halls of Sais that Solon, the great Athenian statesman and poet of the 6th century BCE, was initiated into this forbidden knowledge. A story too ancient for the proud Greeks to remember, but guarded across millennia by the priests of the Nile. Here, Solon learned that the world had suffered many destructions, by fire, by flood, and that civilizations had risen and fallen long before the dawn of recorded time. Atlantis was but the greatest of these forgotten worlds, a civilization that had mastered both the forces of nature and the governance of men, until it fell victim to its own corruption and to a divine retribution from which it could not escape. No surviving Greek historians, not Herodotus, not Thucydides, spoke of Atlantis outside Plato's dialogues. No monuments remain on the surface of the earth to testify to its grandeur. No tombs, no relics, no scrolls. Only a few lines of ancient dialogue, penned by the hand of a philosopher searching for truth and virtue, survive to hint at a world now veiled in the silence of the deep. Thus was born a legend too vast for a single age, a mystery that calls across the oceans of time, inviting each new generation to seek the fragments of a forgotten world. Though Atlantis was first sung into existence by the voice of Plato, the soul of a lost world hums through the legends of countless peoples, scattered like stars across the night sky of human memory. In the sacred halls of Sais, the priests whispered to Solon of the island of the flame, a mighty land devoured by water and fire, remembered only in broken rites and fading carvings. A story older than Athens, older than Greece itself, preserved in silence across the millennia. In the ancient verses of India, in the Vedas and the sprawling Mahabharata, there are tales of Dwaraka, the jewel city of Krishna, swallowed by the ocean's wrath after a war of unimaginable fury. A golden city, lost beneath the waves, its ruins now sought in the silent depths off Gujarat's coast. Far to the north, in the cold mists of the Norsemen, another legend stirs, of Lyonesse, the drowned kingdom west of Cornwall. They say that on the clearest days, fishermen still glimpse the spires of sunken towers beneath the waves and hear the bells of a forgotten church ringing in the deep. Far to the north, in the cold mists of the Norsemen, another legend stirs, of Lyonesse, the drowned kingdom west of Cornwall. They say that on the clearest days, fishermen still glimpse the spires of sunken towers beneath the waves and hear the bells of a forgotten church ringing in the deep. Across the continents, across the centuries, the same haunting lament is heard. A world of greatness, punished for its pride and lost to the wrath of earth and sea. Could these stories, scattered and half-remembered, be the broken reflections of a single primal memory, a memory of Atlantis, burning still in the collective soul of mankind? Long after Plato's voice faded into the twilight of Athens, others rose to guard the embers of his tale, seekers of truth, bearers of forgotten light. Crantor of Soli, philosopher and disciple of Plato's own academy, journeyed to the sacred city of Sais. There, among the crumbling columns and weathered hieroglyphs, he claimed to find a testimony carved in stone, a solemn record of Atlantis, predating even Greece itself. And so Crantor staked his name upon the story, offering it not as fable, but as fact. In the whispers that followed, Theophrastus, Plato's successor, added his voice to the echo. Though cautious, he spoke of lost lands swallowed by the merciless sea, their fate a warning to all mortal empire. Centuries turned, and with them, the hand of Diodorus Siculus penned the Bibliotheca Historica. There he told of distant islands beyond the Pillars of Heracles, once ruled by mighty kings who dared to stretch their hand toward the known world, until the gods themselves struck them down. Pliny the Elder, guardian of Roman knowledge, gazed across the seas in his monumental natural history and whispered of lands that had slipped beneath the waves, silent, forgotten, yet not erased from memory. And Marcellus, geographer of the 1st century, dreamed aloud of a continent vast beyond reckoning, greater than Libya and Asia combined, now crumbled beneath the ocean's eternal hunger, leaving only fragments scattered like broken jewels across the Atlantic deep. Through their words, Crantor, Theophrastus, Diodorus, Pliny, Marcellus, the lost city of Atlantis lived on, not merely in the realm of fantasy, but balanced delicately between truth and legend, flickering like a candle against the storm of forgetting. As the Middle Ages surrendered to light and reason, the Renaissance awoke, a time when ancient dreams were reborn and the forgotten whispers of Atlantis stirred once more among the seekers of wisdom. In 1492, while Columbus sailed westward, chasing the edge of the world, another journey unfolded in the minds of Europe's greatest thinkers. They pondered not only new lands, but lost ones. Among them was Marsilio Ficino, the Florentine mystic and translator of Plato himself. In his revival of Platonic philosophy, Ficino rekindled the fires of Atlantis, painting it not merely as a lost empire, but as a symbol of divine order and cosmic harmony shattered by human pride. Others followed. In 1552, Gonzalo Fernández de Oviedo, chronicler of the New World, hinted that the islands newly discovered in the Atlantic could be remnants of Atlantis's broken body, shards scattered by the wrath of gods and time. And as the Renaissance unfurled its wings, the philosopher and statesman Francis Bacon gazed toward the horizon. In 1627, he penned The New Atlantis, a vision of a utopian civilization where knowledge ruled supreme, a beacon of what humanity might achieve, should it heed the lessons of the lost world. For Bacon and his kindred spirits, Atlantis was no mere myth. It was a dream of human perfection, a blueprint for an enlightened future, glimpsed only in the mirror of a shattered past. Through the eyes of the Renaissance dreamers, Atlantis transcended time. It became a lighthouse on the dark seas of discovery, calling to all who dared to seek, to imagine, and to remember. As the flames of the Renaissance faded into the bright blaze of the Enlightenment, a new spirit ruled the world. A spirit not of dreams, but of logic, skepticism, and relentless inquiry. The mythos of Atlantis, once a guiding star for dreamers and explorers, now faced the sharpened quills of rational minds. Truth was no longer measured by wonder, but by evidence. Hard, immutable, undeniable. Jean-Baptiste Dubos, in the early 18th century, dismissed the Atlantis tale as no more than an allegory, a political parable crafted by Plato to warn Athens of its own creeping hubris. And still others joined the growing chorus of doubt. The Scottish philosopher David Hume, in his ceaseless quest for certainty, brushed aside Atlantis with a wave of his hand, branding it a relic of human credulity, a myth born of our yearning for lost golden ages. In the great Encyclopédie of Diderot and d'Alembert, the tale was entombed beneath a mountain of rationality. Atlantis, they claimed, was a lesson, not of history, but of moral philosophy. A fable stitched from the cloth of idealism, not the records of men. Even the astronomer and philosopher Voltaire, ever the skeptic, wielded his pen against the Atlantis tradition. For him, it was a charming story, no more, no less, another glittering dream for simple minds to chase. And yet, the story refused to die. Despite the Enlightenment's best efforts to bind it in chains of reason, Atlantis endured, a spark hidden beneath cold ash, a murmur in the heart of humanity that no amount of skepticism could ever fully silence. For centuries, Atlantis was but a shadow play, a dream clutched in the mind's eye, until the 20th century, when the sea itself began to stir and whispers turned to tremors. In 1968, off the coast of Bimini in the Bahamas, pilots flying above the shallow waters glimpsed something unnatural beneath the waves, a strange formation of massive stone blocks, aligned as if by unseen architects of the abyss. It was Manson Valentine, the intrepid naturalist and archaeologist, who first brought the world's gaze to the so-called Bimini Road, a mile-long chain of megalithic stones lying eerily straight and deliberate upon the ocean floor, like the broken bones of an ancient highway. Valentine, inspired by Edgar Cayce's prophecies, the sleeping prophet, who foretold that Atlantis would rise near Bimini around 1968, declared the discovery a monumental sign, a relic of a lost civilization peeking once more from the watery tomb. Yet the world was divided. To some geologists, the Bimini Road was nothing more than a natural occurrence, beach rock fractured by tides and time. To others, it was impossible to ignore the eerie precision, the haunting right angles, the sense of purpose etched into every slab. Debate raged across continents, from scientific halls to whispered tavern tales. Had mankind stumbled upon a forgotten pier of Atlantis itself? A shattered causeway leading to a city of gods now devoured by the sea? Manson Valentine had lit the beacon. Whether truth or illusion, the Bimini Road called dreamers and doubters alike into the deep, and the legend of Atlantis burned brighter than it had for 1,000 years. As the tides of the 20th century surged forward, the search for Atlantis entered a new age, one no longer content with myths and whispers, but armed with the steel of science and the spirit of exploration. At the helm stood Jacques Cousteau, the great mariner of the modern world. With eyes as deep as the oceans he loved, Cousteau chased mysteries beneath the waves, seeking answers written in coral and stone. In the 1970s, Cousteau turned his gaze toward the Mediterranean, where another theory had begun to stir, a theory not of faraway islands, but of forgotten catastrophes much closer to home. Cousteau led expeditions around the volcanic islands of Santorini, ancient Thera, a place once shaken by one of the greatest natural disasters the world had ever known. Around 1600 BCE, a cataclysmic eruption tore the island apart, sending tsunamis and ash clouds across the Aegean and beyond. Some scholars began to wonder, was this the true heart of Atlantis? Had Plato's fable been a memory, distorted through the haze of centuries, a reflection of Thera's annihilation and the fall of the mighty Minoan civilization of Crete? The Minoans, seafarers of legend, had built an empire of glittering cities, advanced technology, and delicate art, only to be undone by fire, water, and time. Their memory, carried by sailors and sages, may have seeded the myth of a once great land swallowed by wrathful seas. Cousteau did not claim to find Atlantis. Instead, he uncovered the bones of ancient worlds, lost harbors, drowned temples, shattered cities, and left behind a greater gift, the reminder that truth and myth are often twin currents flowing through the same vast ocean. Even as explorers scoured the Mediterranean, the Atlantic held its breath, for it too carried its own lost whispers, hidden beneath fathoms of silence and time. In the year 2000, ocean engineer Paulina Zalitsky and her team embarked on a mission that would stir the deep once more. Using advanced sonar technology, they swept the seabed near the Guanahacoibes Peninsula, and what they glimpsed would ignite both wonder and controversy. Beneath 600 meters of water, they discovered vast formations, blocks of stone shaped into symmetrical patterns, aligned like the shattered skeleton of a once mighty city. Roads, plazas, monumental shapes, all entombed in the ocean's endless night. Paulina Zalitsky spoke of a possible pre-Ice Age civilization, submerged during the cataclysms that ended the last great glacial era, a memory preserved not by men, but by the sea itself, whispering from the depths. Could these ruins be the last echo of a world that had once sailed the Atlantic, thriving before memory was born? A fragment of the fabled Atlantis, waiting, patient and forgotten, beneath the Caribbean waves. Skeptics pointed to natural formations, to tricks of sonar, and the eager hunger of the human mind to find patterns where none exist. Yet the images spoke differently to dreamers, and even among the doubters, an unease remained, like a ghost walking just out of sight. Atlantis, perhaps not a single place, but many echoes across the world, fragments of forgotten epics, pieces of a riddle whose answer drifts just beyond the grasp of mortal hands. As whispers of sunken cities grew louder, the guardians of science gathered, their minds sharpened not by dreams, but by cold calculation. Atlantis, they declared, must face the crucible of reason. Geologists, archaeologists, and historians rose to challenge the swelling legend. They pointed to the natural forces that carve the earth, tectonic shifts, rising seas, volcanic wrath, shaping coastlines in ways that mimic the hand of man. The so-called Bimini Road, critics said, was no ancient causeway, but a natural formation, beach rock fractured by the relentless rhythms of tide and wind. Plato's Atlantis, they argued, was never meant as history, but as allegory, a moral tale spun within the dialogues Timaeus and Critias, written around 360 BCE, a vision of a decadent empire undone by its own hubris, not a lost kingdom waiting to be found. Figures like Pierre Vidal-Naquet, the French historian, stood firm in the 20th century. Atlantis, he said, was a philosophical parable, a mirror held up to Athens, warning of the dangers of pride and power. Every discovery, every photograph of submerged stones was dissected, weighed, measured, doubted. Rational minds demanded evidence beyond rumor and wonder. They demanded certainty in a world built by uncertainty itself. And yet, for every certainty they claimed, mystery slipped through their fingers like sand. For every answer forged in steel, another question rose from the deep. Atlantis, it seemed, could not be slain so easily. Science had struck hard, but the legend endured, wounded yet unbroken, weaving between the lines of logic and into the eternal halls of the human heart. Long before the myths of lost cities and drowned kingdoms, Earth herself wrote her own apocalyptic sagas, not with pen and ink, but with fire, ash, and waves as tall as mountains. In the memory of the Earth, cataclysm is no stranger. Around 1600 BCE, the mighty eruption of Thera, modern Santorini, shattered the cradle of the Minoan civilization, sending tsunamis surging across the Aegean and cloaking the skies in shadow. The Earth shook again around 6200 BCE, when the Storegga slides off the coast of Norway unleashed massive underwater landslides, birthing tsunamis that ravaged prehistoric shores from Scotland to Denmark. The legends of flood and ruin are not born merely from fear, but from survival. Memories passed down in trembling voices, warning of a world that can turn against its children in the blink of an eye. From the sacred waters of Mesopotamia to the distant tales of the Hopi, from the Aztecs to the Greeks, the motif repeats. A mighty deluge, a lost golden age, the gods' wrath sweeping clean the sins of mortals. Perhaps Atlantis was never a single place, but 1,000 memories stitched into one legend, a reflection of humanity's oldest terror, that even the greatest of civilizations, for all their might and splendor, are no match for the fury of a living world. Why does Atlantis haunt us still? What ancient chord does it strike in the hearts of mortal men? In every civilization, in every age, there beats a yearning, a desperate hunger for a lost golden age when man and world were one and harmony reigned before the fall. Atlantis is not merely a place. It is a memory we carry in our bones, the ache for a home forgotten, the dream of purity lost, the paradise that slipped through trembling fingers into the chasm of history. Psychologists whisper of it, a primal longing, the lost utopia syndrome, the eternal search for a perfection we believe was once ours and might be again if only we remember. In the hidden corners of our minds, Atlantis survives, not as fact, but as truth of another kind, a beacon in the fog, a ghostly continent of hope that refuses to drown, no matter how deep the waters rise. It is not proof we seek, but wonder, not evidence but memory. Atlantis lives because we need it to live, because without it, the seas of time would feel just a little colder, and the stars above just a little more silent. For millennia, the Sahara was a kingdom of whispers, hiding its secrets beneath waves of burning gold. And yet, in the very heart of this vast desolation, lies a mystery so profound it stirs the echoes of Atlantis once more. The Rishat structure, the Eye of the Sahara, a titanic concentric anomaly, visible from space, carved into the crust of Mauritania. To some, it is a geological wonder. To others, it is the shattered crown of a forgotten empire. Plato, in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, wrote of a city shaped in circles, an island of perfect design, protected by concentric rings of sea and earth. Could the Eye of the Sahara, so eerily similar, be the last scar of that once mighty realm? Geologists argue that the eye is the product of erosion, a collapsed dome born of time and wind, a natural monument, not a cradle of kings. And yet, skeptics cannot explain everything. Ancient riverbeds surround the eye, proof that, long ago, this desert was lush, fertile, a place where civilizations could bloom and fall. In the days before history, could a mighty nation have risen here only to be erased by the wrath of earth and sky? The eye stares blindly toward the heavens, an eternal riddle etched into the bones of the world. Is it merely the laughter of geology, or the last silent witness to a glory long drowned by time? Beneath the frozen skin of Antarctica, the bones of forgotten ages lie entombed. Where once the world burned with life, now only the silence of ice remains, a silence that some believe conceals the greatest secret of all, the lost city of Atlantis. In the 20th century, researchers Rand and Rose Flemath rekindled an astounding hypothesis, drawn from ancient cartographic mysteries and radical geological theory. Their claim was bold. Earth, they said, is not as still as we imagine. Through a cataclysmic phenomenon known as Earth crust displacement, entire continents could shift, ripping civilizations from the warm sun to the jaws of eternal frost. They posited that Atlantis once thrived not beneath oceans, but atop the fertile plains of ancient Antarctica, basking under a tropical sun before the world heaved and turned their paradise into a tomb of ice. If true, The story of Atlantis is not merely a myth of pride and punishment, but a tragedy of cosmic cruelty. A civilization extinguished not by its sins, but by the cold, merciless hand of planetary catastrophe. Yet skeptics caution, no concrete evidence lies beneath the miles-thick glaciers. No shattered cities, no toppled temples, only an endless cold and the whisper of what might have been. Still, the vision endures, of a world reborn in ice, and an empire frozen forever in the deepest vaults of memory. Perhaps Atlantis is not lost beneath the waves, but beneath the silence of 1,000 winters. Beneath the skin of the Atlantic, a colossal wound splits the earth in two, a mountainous scar stretching from the Arctic to the southern oceans, the mid-Atlantic ridge. Here, in the unfathomable abyss, some dare to believe the bones of Atlantis still lie, shattered, drowned, but not forgotten. In Plato's telling, Atlantis lay beyond the Pillars of Heracles, the gates we now call Gibraltar. Beyond them, in the vast Atlantic, was an island mightier than Libya and Asia combined, an empire of wonder, lost to the sea in a single, dreadful day and night. Modern explorers of the deep have mapped the ridge, revealing an ancient world beneath the waves, a world where towering mountains and sunken plateaus suggest the possibility that once, long ago, land broke the ocean's surface, and life thrived in places now consumed by endless blue. Could a cataclysmic shift, tectonic, volcanic, or cosmic, have dragged a flourishing civilization beneath the sea? Could Atlantis have stood proud on these heights before the earth itself rebelled and swallowed its children whole? The mid-Atlantic ridge is a scar of creation, where continents are born and torn apart. It is a place where gods might have walked and empires might have fallen, forgotten by history, but remembered by the soul. Long after the stones have crumbled, long after the oceans have swallowed their last breath of memory, Atlantis endures, not in ruins or relics, but in the dreaming heart of humanity. Across every age, across every land, the soul of Atlantis reawakens, a tale of a perfect world, now lost beyond reach. It is an archetype older than words, the memory of a golden age where wisdom and wonder walked hand in hand, before pride, disaster, and the falling night. Carl Jung spoke of the collective unconscious, a deep well of symbols and dreams shared by all humankind. Atlantis, he might have said, is not merely a story, but a mirror, reflecting our yearning for Eden, our hope that somewhere, once, we lived in harmony with ourselves, the earth, and the heavens. It is the dream of a paradise lost, a world untouched by corruption, washed away by forces too vast to name. Atlantis is every longing, every ache for a world where innocence still lives. Perhaps Atlantis was never meant to be found. Perhaps it was never meant to be mapped by compass or measured by stone. It lives in the spaces between memory and hope, between grief and wonder. The eternal whisper that we were once greater than we are, and could be again. Atlantis has never truly been lost. It lives, reborn and reshaped, within the pulse of every age, every dreamer who dares to seek a forgotten glory beyond the edge of known worlds. In the 19th century, the American congressman and writer Ignatius Donnelly breathed new life into Plato's ancient whispers. With his seminal work, he sowed the seeds of a new Atlantis, not just a lost island, but the cradle of all ancient civilization. Hollywood captured the dream, draping Atlantis in glistening towers and shining seas. In animation, adventure, and fantasy, the lost city glows anew, a beacon of mystery and adventure beyond the horizon of the ordinary world. The mystics, too, heard Atlantis's call. Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet of the early 20th century, claimed that the memories of Atlantis still pulsed within the blood of modern souls, that the lost sons and daughters of that golden age walk among us even now. In the spiritual awakenings of the 20th and 21st centuries, Atlantis became more than myth. It became a symbol of forgotten wisdom, a promise that is buried within our forgotten past lies the key to humanity's awakening. From ancient scrolls to silver screens, from whispered dreams to bold expeditions, Atlantis refuses to sink beneath the tides of time. It re-emerges again and again, because it speaks not only of a place, but of a hope, a warning, and a wonder too vast to be silenced. Atlantis endures because it is more than history. It is a call to remember what we might yet become. Across the ages, humanity has charted the stars, braved uncharted seas, scaled mountains that kiss the heavens, yet always, in our hearts, there is another voyage, the search for Atlantis. Atlantis is more than a legend. It is a testament to the spirit of discovery, the flame that refuses to die, the hope that somewhere, somehow, a greater world still waits to be found. We search not only for what was lost, but for what still might be born. Atlantis endures because it reminds us that dreams are never truly drowned. They only await the brave to sail again toward the endless horizon. Atlantis may never rise from the depths. Its towers may forever lie silent beneath the restless tides, but its story, its spirit, sails onward, carried in every dream, every quest, every whispered legend across the fires of time. Atlantis is not merely a memory of what was lost. It is the everlasting call to seek what lies beyond the visible, to believe that greatness, wonder, and beauty still await, just beyond the edge of the world, beyond the maps, beyond the oceans, beyond the stars. Atlantis lives wherever the heart dares to dream. The journey never ends. The echoes of lost worlds still call. From the ashes of empires, from the dust of forgotten dreams, beneath the waves, beyond the stars, the past is not lost. It only waits for those who dare to remember. Subscribe to Millennia Whispers, and let us rediscover the wonders time forgot. Where legends sleep, we listen.